Good morning. 1 Peter chapter 2, we're going to read verse 21 through 23 this morning. For to this you've been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example, so that you might follow in his steps. We want to think a little deeper about this example. In verse 22 and 23 show us specific aspects of this example and how we could be that example. He committed no sin. Neither was deceit found in his mouth. So he was sinless, and specifically, he sought to be honest. He didn't use his words as a tool of manipulation to get out of something. Of course, he was being he was offering himself as a sacrifice for our sins, and yet the tool that God used to that end was the unjust work of his accusers. And he never sought to get out from underneath that injustice. When he was reviled, he did not revile in return. He didn't give back as good as he got, like we're tempted to do. Somebody says something to us, and we're going to get them back. Somebody cuts us off, and we're going to let them know that they did that on the highway. Somebody calls us out, and we'll call them out. Somebody gets angry at us, and we'll get angry at them. He didn't do that. When he suffered, he didn't threaten. In his vulnerability, he didn't lash back out, but continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly. Now that's the last point of the verse, and it's the key point. How could he walk sinlessly? How could he walk without any attempt to manipulate conversation? How could he suffer unjustly and not give back? How could he suffer unjustly and not, out of the woundedness, threaten someone? Well, because two reasons. One, he knew that God judges justly, that there's a justice that God would bring about. So he could entrust himself because he understood the Father's just nature. Secondly, he knew that the Father who judges justly was trustworthy. So he could entrust himself. The only way you and I will ever be able to be examples in the midst of unjust suffering is if we actually trust God and we realize and rest in the fact that justice may not emerge in this life, but God, who judges justly, will either in this life or the next see that all record is righted. He'll see that his justice will prevail. So it's really the only way to follow the example of Christ and to submit ourselves in that vulnerable way is to entrust ourselves to a just judge. And that's what we get to do with our Father. May the Lord bless you today.